The sun had softened, casting long shadows over the village. The famine dragged on. Dust clung to tired feet and empty baskets. But inside Oyora's compound, the air smelled of clean water and roasted yam. Zara sat by the window, combing Dinma's hair in slow, thoughtful strokes. Her fingers moved gently with care, as though the act held a sacredness. Dinma closed her eyes. "Your hand is soft today," Dinma murmured. Zara didn't answer at first. Her mind was elsewhere, on the man with the torn clothes and gentle eyes who had bowed so deeply at their gate. There was something about the way he looked at her. Not desire, not pity, something older, sadder, familiar. "Mama," she asked quietly, "do you remember the man who came yesterday? The old hunter with tired eyes?" Dinma opened her eyes. "I remember." "Have you ever seen him before?" Zara's voice was soft, cautious. Dinma was silent. Then she slowly reached up, took Zara's hand, and lowered it from her hair. "Come," she said. She stood and walked to the old wooden chest by the bed. From beneath folded wrappers and a torn holy book, Jean pulled out a small calabash wrapped in faded cloth. She opened it slowly. Inside was a tiny anklet, rusted, delicate, with tiny red beads woven into its sides. "This was tied around your ankle the day I found you," Dinma said. "The only thing you had." Zara knelt beside her, heart pounding. She had seen that anklet before, once, in the market, on a little girl. The same design, the same red beads. What if... "Mama, what if..." Dinma looked into her eyes. "I have always wondered, my daughter. I asked around, but no one came forward. No one claimed you, so I claimed you." Zara touched the beads. Her hands trembled. A storm of questions pressed behind her lips, but none of them formed. That evening, at the edge of the forest, Oki the hunter sat on a log, carving a piece of wood into a flute. He blew gently into the mouth, but it made no sound. He laughed softly to himself. "I've lost my hand," he muttered. He looked up, eyes toward the village, toward the distant house where the golden-necked queen lived. He thought of her grace, her silence, her face. Something in her eyes haunted him. Not because she looked like someone he once knew, but because when she had looked at him, he felt seen. He reached into his tattered pocket and brought out a matching anklet, red beads, dusty, but still vibrant. He stared at it. "I lost her. In a storm," he whispered. "I searched until the river swallowed my voice." He closed his hand around the anklet. Could it be? The next market day arrived. People dragged their feet with hope that something would return. Rain, a buyer, anything. Zara came too, cloaked in a simple wrapper, her gold necklaces left at home. She wanted no attention, but word had spread. "Zara is here," someone whispered. "She came to buy from us." Mothers offered her the last of their bitter cola. Children followed her barefoot. She didn't speak much, only smiled politely, nodding her head. As she turned to leave, a voice called gently behind her. "Queen." Zara turned. Oke stood there. He looked cleaner now. Someone had given him a fresh wrapper. He held a walking stick in one hand. His eyes searched hers like a man staring into an old mirror. He stepped closer and held something out. The anklet, Zara gasped. Her hand reached for her chest instinctively. The weight of the moment pressed into her. "I had two," Oke said quietly. "One for each foot." A pause. Zara took a shaky breath. "Who? Who are you?" "My name is Oki, the hunter from Itolu Hills. I had a daughter once." His voice cracked. "She was taken during the flood. I searched for years, gave up. But the day I saw you..." I knew I hadn't buried her in my memory. I had only been waiting. He knelt. Zara's heart was no longer pounding. It was whispering. A calm ache. Dinma was suddenly there, emerging from the crowd. Her face was unreadable. She looked from Zara to Oke and back again. Then she stepped forward and pulled Oke gently. To his feet. She is our daughter now, Dinma said quietly. Not yours, not mine, ours. Oke's eyes filled with tears. Zara nodded slowly. You are the man I fed with rice and water. You are the child I lost and found again. Zara didn't cry. She didn't reach for him. She only stood there, eyes locked with the man who once lost everything and now stood barefoot in a crowded market with a matching anklet in his palm. The wind blew softly between them. Behind her, people had begun to slow their steps. Vendors stopped mid-sale. The market had grown quiet, the kind of silence that arrives when something sacred is happening, and no one wants to ruin it by speaking. Then Zara took a step forward, not toward Oke, but toward the child crouched beside, the yam seller's stool, eyes wide, ribs visible beneath thin skin. The boy had been watching too. Zara knelt and reached into her basket. She handed the boy a sweet potato and a small calabash of groundnut stew. Eat, she whispered. He took it with trembling hands. Then, only then, did she stand and turn to Oke. She didn't ask any more questions. She didn't need answers. Sometimes presence was enough. Walk with me, she said. He hesitated. Zara didn't repeat herself. She turned and began moving through the market, slow and deliberate, like the procession of rain clouds returning to a cracked earth. Oke followed, not like a father hoping to be claimed, but like a student unsure if he belonged in the school of miracles. The villagers parted. Some watched with quiet awe. Others murmured things that once would have stung Zara. But now they only floated past her like dry leaves. Is it true? A girl whispered. That's the hunter who gave her away, someone muttered. That's the child who fed him anyway, said another. They reached the far end of the market, where the path curved toward the hills. Zara stopped beneath a twisted iroko tree. A shrine once stood here, long abandoned. She turned to him. Why did you bow to me that day? Oke's voice was low, cracked from wind and age. Because I saw something I could not explain. A woman feeding those who mocked her. A woman with my daughter's eyes. Zara folded her arms. Would you have claimed me if you knew then? He was silent. No, she answered for him. You wouldn't, not out of shame, but because you were afraid of who I had become. You saw gold on my neck, not the dust you left me in. Oke nodded slowly. That is true. A long pause. Then let us start from truth, Zara said, not blood. He looked at her unsure. What do you mean? She turned toward the path again. You can walk beside me. Help build what hunger broke, but do not ask for what time has already shaped without you. I had a mother. Dinma, he whispered. Yes, she didn't birth me, but she stood when others ran. That kind of mothering rewrites bloodlines. Oke bowed his head. Then let me help, however you allow. Zara gave a small nod. Then carry this. She handed him her basket. He took it, tentatively at first, then with both hands. Later, in the courtyard of her home, Dinma watched them return. Her back was straight, her eyes unreadable. She didn't speak. Zara placed the anklet on the table between them, then turned to Oke. You will stay here, for now, in the guest hut. You'll eat what we eat, but there are rules. Say them. You do not call me daughter, not yet, maybe never. You will treat Dinma with honor. She is not your rival. She is the reason I stand. He nodded. And lastly, Zara continued, "You will rise with us before dawn. You will cook with the women, fetch water with the young men. You will know the labor that built this home. I will." The lamps were lit. Shadows flickered across the courtyard walls. Dinma finally spoke. "Then let the night rest. There is work tomorrow." Zara stood there a moment longer, watching the moon above them. She reached for her neck, unclasped one of the thinner gold chains, and laid it gently on the table beside the anklet. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel its weight. Before the first rooster crowed, Oke was already awake. The compound was still, save for the soft clinking of metal, as Zara lifted the cover off the water pot. She was in a plain wrapper, her gold gone for now, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back, with a simple red scarf. "Good," she said, not looking at him. "You're up. Come." They walked to the stream in silence. Zara balanced a clay pot on her head. Oke carried 2 empty buckets. The sky was still the color of ashes, birds, yet to sing. At the stream, a few women were already washing clothes. They stopped when they saw Zara. Some lowered their eyes, others held her gaze too long. She ignored them all. Oke bent low, scooping water, unsure if he should speak. "Do they always look at you like that?" "Yes," she said simply. "They don't know whether to worship or repent." She placed her pot beside his. "Fill it halfway. You'll carry this one back." He blinked. "Me?" Zara raised an eyebrow. "You think because you're a man or because you're older you don't carry?" He said nothing and obeyed. Back at the compound, Dinma was stoking the fire. The smell of wood smoke and early morning earth filled the air. She didn't greet Oki. She didn't need to. Her silence was greeting enough. He knelt beside her. "What should I do?" She handed him a knife. "Peel yam, no waste." Zara smiled to herself and stepped inside. She no longer felt the need to shield Dinma. She knew now that the woman who had raised her didn't need anyone to defend her. She was flint wrapped in soft hands. She had survived loss, ridicule, poverty, and still made space to love. By midday, Zara walked into the community hall, once abandoned, now full of women sorting Gary, men tying raffia roofs, children learning letters on black slates. Her idea, her plan, her doing. 3 new families arrived from Nkulu, said the woman in charge. "They've lost everything." Zara nodded. "We'll take them in. 2 rooms in the back are empty. Give them hot food, water to bathe, new wrappers if we have." The woman hesitated. "Zara, we are running out of palm oil and salt and soap." Zara didn't blink. "Send word to Oyora. Tell him I'll come see him by evening." She turned to go, but one child ran up to her, small hands holding up a woven flower crown made of hibiscus petals. The girl was silent, eyes wide. Zara knelt. "For me?" The girl nodded and placed it on her head gently, then whispered, "You're the queen who feeds everyone." Zara smiled, touched her cheek, and stood tall again, flower crown crooked, neck gleaming in the sun. By dusk, she found Oyora at the edge of the forest, sleeves rolled up, directing a few young men as they unloaded sacks of maize from the back of his ox cart. He turned, saw her, and smiled. "You came." She walked to him, calm as a rising tide. "I need supplies, enough to feed 20 more people." He wiped sweat from his brow. "Take 30. There'll be more by the weekend." They stood in quiet understanding for a moment. Then Zara reached out and adjusted the loose chain around his neck. "You work too much," she said. He chuckled. "Says the woman who carries the world on her shoulders." She looked away briefly, then met his eyes. "It's not the world, just a village. That's how every river begins," he replied. A single drop, then another. Zara stepped back. "I have to go. Mama's waiting." He nodded. Come for dinner tomorrow. Zara hesitated, then nodded once, firmly. Yes. She turned and walked away, flower crown still on her head, back straight, the last light of sun casting her long shadow across the dirt path. Behind her, Oyora watched until she was out of sight. Night fell slowly. In the small hut, Oke sat quietly, carving something with his knife, wood shaving beneath his fingers. Dinma sat on the porch, shelling beans. They didn't speak. Inside, Zara lit the oil lamp, stared at the mirror on the wall, the same one where she once wished her neck away. Now it reflected a woman who had become a symbol, not of pain, but of rising. The rains returned in murmurs, not with violence, but with slow forgiveness, drumming lightly on zinc roofs, soaking the cracked red earth, unburdening the air of its dry silence. Zara walked barefoot through the compound that morning, the hem of her wrapper soaked. She did not mind. The ground, damp and pliant, smelled like home. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster argued with thunder. Dinma was humming, a quiet tune, one that had no beginning and no end. She was folding clothes beneath the awning. When Zara stepped into her view, Dinma stopped humming and held up a faded wrapper. Still smells like cassava, she said. You want to keep it or give it to the women's shelter? Zara took it in her hands. The cloth was thin but soft from years of wear. She smiled faintly. Let it go. Someone else will. Need its memory now. She moved past her, fingers trailing along the bamboo post as she turned toward the open clearing where the school now stood. 4 mud brick classrooms, each painted with wildflowers by the children. Oki was already there, chalk in hand, his voice gently rising and falling as he guided a group of boys through fractions. Zara didn't interrupt. She watched the way he had shed his stiffness, watched the way the children no longer flinched at his voice, how his jaw relaxed when he laughed at their wrong answers. She let herself smile. There was a small stool waiting for her outside, the last classroom, the one where girls learned to weave, read, and speak aloud. She sat, not as a queen, not even as a savior, just a woman whose feet had carried her through fire and flood, and was still moving forward. A young girl emerged from the classroom, her head wrapped in white cloth, one foot limping from a scar long healed. She held a notebook to her chest and looked at Zara shyly. Zara opened her palm. The girl approached, placed the book in her hand. Zara opened it. Inside, pages of carefully written letters, curved and trembling, but hers. The girl whispered, I wrote you in case you ever forgot who you were. Zara closed the book gently. Her fingers trembled, but her voice did not. I will never forget again. By noon, the scent of boiling ground nuts filled the air. Someone was laughing near the well. Zara walked past it all, the sights, the sound, the slow pulse of a village remaking itself. She arrived at the riverbank. There, under the mango tree, sat a man in blue. Oyora. He had spread a mat, placed 2 calabashes beside him. You're late, he said. She raised an eyebrow. You came early. He offered a calabash. She took it, sipped. Water cold and sweet. They sat in silence as the river rolled on. Old, patient, unbothered. He looked at her finally. There's land near the northern bend. If we clear it, we can plant rice. It'll feed 100, maybe. And more. Zara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she watched a single leaf fall into the river and disappear downstream. Then she nodded. Let's clear it. Later that evening, under the lantern's hush, Dinma unfolded a paper that had arrived from the city. creased, damp from the rain, but still legible. Zara read it twice. A government official. Recognition. A request to visit. Maybe even funding. Okay, frowned. You trust them? Zara folded the paper again. I don't trust institutions, but I trust the people they try to silence. She stood, walked outside into the quiet night. Fireflies blinked like tiny memories. She raised her arms to the sky and breathed deep. Not for show, not for strength, just to be. The soil had not forgotten her. Neither had the stars. 2 weeks later, the village held a meeting beneath the baobab tree. Old men in wrappers, women balancing children in baskets, teenagers leaning on rusted bicycles. A distant generator hummed like a stubborn bee. Zara stood at the edge, watching. It wasn't her place to speak, not yet. The council elder, Pa Nwachukwu, raised a brittle hand. They say the city people are coming, he said. Coming with papers and cameras. Coming to name this place. A murmur swept the crowd. Name. It what? Someone asked. Golden Village? No, another snap. Neck Village, because of her long neck. Some laughed. Others glanced sideways, uncomfortable. Zara's chest was calm. She stepped forward, slow, measured. I did not ask to be named, she said. Neither did this village. But if they must write us in their books, let them write this. We fed each other when no one else would. Silence. Zara's voice softened but did not tremble. We were mocked. We were starved. We were forgotten. Still we built. We planted. We lived. She turned to Pa Nwachukwu. If they come with names, let them learn ours first. The old man nodded slowly. You will speak for us. Zara blinked, then nodded once. I will. That evening a cart arrived from the next town, drawn by 2 tired goats, its wheels creaking like old bones. Inside were sacks of maize, letters from schoolgirls, and a carefully packed crate of books. On top, a handwritten note. To the girl who sees tomorrow, thank you. You showed us that shame is not in the body, but in the cruelty of those who laugh. Our daughters walk straighter now. They tie scarves with pride. Zara read it aloud to Dinma, then folded the letter and placed it inside the woven box where she kept the feathers she used to wear in childhood, the broken anklet from her first market day, and the torn page from the storybook Dinma had once brought home from the missionary shop. The box was full now, a little archive of becoming. The rice fields began in silence. Not with ceremonies, but with the scraping of hoes against earth, the laughter of children throwing seeds and Oke teaching. 2 boys, how to tell soil by scent. Zara and Oyora worked side by side, planting in rows, sun on their backs. Some days the rains fell too hard, some days not at all. But the land was listening, and that was enough. One afternoon, as the wind cooled and palm fronds whispered their old songs, Dinma called Zara to the veranda. She was holding a letter, faded, trembling at the edges. I kept this, she said, all these years. Zara took it gently, opened it. Inside, a name she didn't recognize, a village she'd never heard of. A signature, Awel, midwife. I thought your mother might have died, Dinma whispered. But something told me. Maybe not, Zara said. Nothing, just sat still, eyes fixed on the page, her breath catching like a child's first word. The next morning, Zara rose before the light. The letter from Dinma sat on the small wooden table beside her bed, pressed beneath a calabash to keep it from curling. She hadn't slept, not truly. Dreams had come like waves, unfamiliar voices, a woman with salt in her hair, hands reaching but never touching. She dressed slowly. No feathers today, no loud colors, just a plain wrapper and a scarf that smelled faintly of smoke and rain. She stepped into the yard. The rooster didn't crow. It simply watched her, head tilted, as if it too sensed something shifting. Down the old footpath, past the mango tree with the scorched trunk, past the well where Itzioma once dropped her favorite ladle, past the stones children had stacked into tiny shrines for the egg spirits, Zara walked. She didn't carry a staff. She didn't tell anyone. But Oyora must have seen her because she found him leaning against the wooden fence by the edge of the clearing, arms folded. "You're leaving?" It wasn't a question. Zara nodded. "For a while." He didn't try to stop her, didn't ask why. Instead, he reached into his satchel and pulled out a worn necklace, a leather thong with a cowrie shell shaped like a moon. "Take this, in case you forget who you are while remembering who she was." She blinked, accepting. It then walked on. The road was long and the bush thick in places. But with every step, Zara felt something open inside her, a chamber she hadn't dared to enter since childhood. Not when the village girls spat behind her back. Not when the city man filmed her like a curiosity. Not even when Oke wept at her feet. This was the ache beneath the ache, not knowing, not ever having known. Awel's village was smaller than she expected. No tarred roads, just sand and silence. Goats roamed freely, bells clinking. A boy pointed wordlessly when she asked for the midwife's house. The compound was quiet. A single stool, a row of pepper plants growing wild, and a woman, her back bent, braiding her own gray hair with small beads. Zara stood still. She wasn't sure how to speak, but the woman didn't look up. She simply said, "You came late, child. I've been waiting 29 years. Zara's heart slammed. "You knew." "I'd come." The woman finally looked up. Her eyes were steady, old, soft with storm. "I knew she would send you one day. If she had breath, if she had the will. I prayed for one of them." Zara stepped forward. "Where is she?" Awel's fingers resumed braiding. "Buried under a mahogany tree with no name. She never told me yours. Only that she couldn't keep the child of a man she never chose. Silence. Not anger. Not even grief. Just release." Zara sat beside her, trembling. Not from pain, but recognition. The questions would come later, but for now, just two women, two strands of a life braided back together. Back in the village, Dinma waited by the fire. She was shelling ground nuts. Okay. Swept the steps, then paused, glancing down the road every few minutes. "She'll return," Dinma said softly, without looking up. Oke nodded. "I know." That night Zara stayed in the compound with Awele. There was no light except the fire in the hearth and the faint gleam of oil in a cracked lantern. Awele moved like someone who had carried silence all her life. She didn't speak unless necessary. She simply handed Zara a bowl of okra soup still steaming and began humming softly, something older than words. Zara ate in silence, then finally whispered, "Why did she leave me?" Awel didn't answer right away. She stirred the fire. The smoke curled like memory. "Sometimes," she said, "a woman breaks in places no one sees. Your mother was like that. She wasn't weak, just too tired to explain her pain to a world that wouldn't listen." Zara stared into the orange glow. Did she regret it? Awel looked at her, really looked for the first time that evening. She never stopped. At dawn, Zara woke to the sound of distant drumming. She stepped outside and saw women, older women, moving in slow circles in the sand, their wrappers tucked, their foreheads marked with ash. Awel stood at the edge, arms raised, murmuring. To the wind, it was a rite Zara didn't recognize, but something in her bones did. "They're calling her spirit," Awele said, joining her. to let her know her daughter has returned. Even if only in feet, even if only in memory. Zara blinked hard. Something warm slid down her cheek. She stayed in the village 3 more days. During that time, she didn't braid her hair, didn't wear gold. She helped Awil grind melon seeds, helped patch a leaking roof, sat with a blind woman who touched her face and said, "Your voice is shaped like someone I knew." On the 4th day, she stood before the mahogany tree. She didn't cry. She just placed the cowrie shell necklace at its roots and whispered, "Thank you for not ending me." Then she turned and walked home. In the village, Chisholm sat by the stream. No one laughed anymore. Her friends had scattered. One married into another town, one left for the city, the third now sold soap on a wooden tray. She watched her own reflection and hated it, because deep down she knew. Zara's grace had always been power, and her cruelty just fear pretending to be strength. Zara returned to find Dinma preparing yam pottage. The whole house smelled of crayfish and calm. She said nothing at first, just walked up behind her and wrapped her arms around her. Dinma's hands stilled. Then she whispered, "You found something." Zara pressed her face into her shoulder. "I found her." They stood like that for a while. Then Dinma said, "Good. Now live, my daughter, and live fully." That night, Oyora returned late from the warehouse. His robe smelled of sun and sawdust. When he stepped inside, he paused. Zara was seated in the center of the room, head held high, neck bare. No gold, no scarf, no shame. She was writing. He didn't speak, just leaned down, kissed the top of her head, and sat beside her. "What are you writing?" he asked gently. "A story," she said. "About?" She looked up at him, her eyes calm. About a girl who hated her neck, until she realized it helped her hear the things other people missed.